Happy Friday to all you out there. We are going to finish this week right with some more Pauper cards, and we will start with Avon Liberator. It's 2 and double white for a 2/3 bird soldier. It's got flying. It's got morph for 3 and a white. So if you want to pay the same mana value, but a different mana cost, you want to just pay single white instead of double white, you can do that, but you have to put it down as a 2/2 creature for 3 before you do that. So you're paying more for it. But what else does it do? When this creature is turned face up, target creature you control gains protection of the color of your choice until end of turn. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting for a couple ways. So one, it's interesting in that protection is both a cool offensive tool and defensive tool. It's kind of nice. Being able to morph this creature from a 2/2 to a 2/3 can help you with blocks. Whether you're blocking with this creature or somebody else is blocking this creature as you attack with it. Maybe you can get a good turn a trade into you keeping your creature. That could be all right. This could be some kind of surprise block to be able to flip this over, and now it's a flyer, so you can block something in the air that your opponent didn't think you could. And the thing that's also really interesting about this as a defensive option specifically, but also as an offensive option, more as a defensive option, Morph is an interesting ability in Magic in that it doesn't just happen at instant speed. It is this kind of free action outside of the normal timing rules of the game, in that you can just flip a card over at any time and it cannot be responded to. So you kind of get the ability to really screw up somebody's plans by being able to turn this over and giving somebody protection. That's cool. it's cool. But the problem is this thing costs too much. It costs too much for the creature to begin with. If you just played it vanilla, if you just played it face up anyway, it definitely costs too much if you're paying the 7 mana to put this down as a 2/2 and then flipping it over to its 2/3 version. There's enough cheap protection spells that you would just end up playing those instead. The unique capabilities of Morph are not worth all this extra cost. The art's cool. Scourge is cool. But, we spent a lot of time talking about all the things that this card can do. But what it's often going to do is rot in your hand because it costs too much and you just will not have the mana to play it, or not have the mana to play it and flip it to be where it would be effective. And for that, it makes it a much less desirable option. And we'll give it a 2.2. And move on. Moving on to anytime. I mean, I can tell you what the card is. There we go. Ember Shot is 6 and a red for an instant. It says Ember Shot deals 3 damage to any target, and you draw a card. 7 mana. 7 whole mana for a lightning bolt that also draws you a card. It's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Whew, that's real bad. 7 mana. That's an incredible amount of mana. Okay, here's what I'm thinking was going through Wizards' head as they were making this. Red is not a color that is known for drawing cards straight up. They have found other ways for red to get card advantage, generally through exiling cards from the top of your library and being able to play those temporarily. Or having to discard a card before you can draw a card, a rummage style effect. But straight up drawing a card in red should be pretty expensive because it's not something that the color should really be able to do. But you're telling me that because a lightning bolt is still a single red mana, so you're telling me that drawing a card in red is worth 6 mana? I don't think so. There are colorless options that can draw you cards for 4 mana, maybe even 3 mana. Definitely 4, but maybe even 3. Nah. Nah. This card's bad. You won't even consider it for your Pauper deck, nor should you. I think this is a 1. I think this is a 1, and it's straight up just because of the cost. Now, I think the fun thought experiment is how cheap does this card have to get before it becomes a Pauper staple? What if we did that for a minute? We got a little time. Would you pay 5 mana to deal 3 damage and draw a card? I don't think I would. I think that's still too much. Would you pay 4 mana to do 3 damage and draw a card? I still probably wouldn't do that. If you get this down to 3 mana, I think this becomes a Pauper staple. I think Staple's a little strong. I think you'd have a consideration for it. It would find some places in decks, but a 3 mana, 3 damage instant that also draws you a card. I could see a mono red burn playing that, knowing that they're going to get that extra card advantage. They probably would end up throwing it out because you'd just take the cheaper exile effects that we have more modernly, if that's a word. But I think there'd be more of a consideration for it. But at 7, oh boy, no chance. So yeah, I think that earns its 1. Let's talk about Dauntless Survivor. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1 human warrior. When this creature enters, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Could be this creature, which makes it a 2/2. It's a grizzly bear right there. You could put that counter on something else. 2 mana for 2 power is standard to the point of it not being good. If it's average, then that means there's a lot of things that are above average, right? Yeah, it's not great. I mean, getting to put the 1/1 counter on anything is cool. If you have there aren't a whole lot of green bounce decks, but if you had a green bounce deck and you kept bouncing this back to your hand and playing it to put more 1/1 counters on things, it's interesting. But no, you're not going to do that. We'll give this a... Man, it's just vanilla other than that. We'll give this a... Man, I'm really hovering somewhere between like 1.5 and 2.5. And I don't think it's... the thing is, I don't think it's a 2. So, is it higher than a 2 or is it worse than a 2? That's kind of a tough call. Let's just give it a 1.9. Keep going. Adherent of Hope is 1 and a white for a 2/1 human soldier. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control a Basri Planeswalker, you put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Well, we've said it a few times. There are no Planeswalkers in Pauper rarity. But what if we were, just for fun, to say Basri, and let's type in Planeswalker and search. How many Basris do we think there are? Oh, that was Oracle. I wanted card name. You idiot. There we go. There's 2 Basris. They're both at mythic rarity. Those are not Pauper legal. Yeah. So Adherent Hope, what happens is this thing's a 2 mana, 2/1 vanilla creature. It's a Savannah Lions you paid an extra mana for. and feel bad about, because you will never be able to pump up this creature with its own ability. Yeah, it's bad, right? It's a 1. It's a 1. You would just play Savannah Lions, and people don't really play Savannah Lions in Pauper either. But it's just a much worse Savannah Lions. Bad. Veteran Swordsmith is 2 and a white for a 3/2 human soldier. Other soldier creatures you control gain +1/+0. It's a Lord effect. It's had the same art this whole time. Soldiers. Soldiers aren't really a deck in Pauper. There have been soldiers decks in other formats. I don't know if they play this card. Lord effects are generally pretty nice. It's cool to have them. Cool to get a big boost to all your creatures in some form or fashion. +1/+0 isn't terrible. Yeah, you'd like to have the point of toughness, but I don't. You could probably put together a halfway decent soldiers deck in mono white in Pauper, maybe even blue white. But I don't think it's really worth it. I think there are just better strategies that you would use that aren't typal in both colors, or even the combination of colors, especially in the combination of colors. And I think it costs a little too much. I think 3 mana, well, not crazy expensive cost. 3 mana for a 3/2 that gives a small power bump to all your other soldiers. I don't think that's quite good enough. I think we give this let's give it its power and toughness. Let's give this a 3.2 and say thanks, but probably no thanks. Mobilize. Rebecca's back. Let's see what this Rebecca card does. It's single green mana for a sorcery. It says untap all creatures you control. If it was at instant speed, we still probably wouldn't be talking, but if it was instant speed, it'd be a hell of a lot better. It's sorcery speed, though. You attack with all your stuff, pay a single mana, you untap it all. You're in green, so your creatures are probably pretty big. Yeah, I don't know. This costs $7.50 for this card in Portal. And the list printing, the only difference is that it has that little Planeswalker symbol in the bottom left. 51 cents. 7.5. 51 cents. Wild. Great art. Great art, but the rest of it's not all that great. So, man, what do you give Mobilize? Let's go ahead and give it a... Oh, it hurts me. It hurts me a little. I'm going to give this a 1.2. Keep going to Corpse Cur. 4 mana for an artifact creature, Phyrexian Dog. And it's a 2/2. It's got Infect. And also, when this creature enters, you can return target creature card with Infect from your graveyard to your hand. So could return another Corpse Cur. And if this one dies, then you could return it with that other Corpse Cur. That's kind of cool. A little looping effect. Infect, I think we've talked about before, but this creature deals its damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters, and to players in the form of poison counters. 10 poison counters on you, and you're dead. So this thing could potentially swing in 5 times and take out an opponent. You don't even have to do 20 damage to him. You only have to do 10 worth of infect damage. Interesting. But it's, other than that, no evasion, no way of helping you to get that damage. You're paying 4 mana for a 2/2. That's not great. I mean, sure, if it blocks, it puts the -1/-1 counters on the opponent's creature, which could kill it or at least, really slow it down. That's okay. You hear opponents playing that Tolarian Terror deck, and you play a Corpse Cur, you block the Terror with this. That terror is now a 3/3. If in my previous scenario you have another corpse core in your hand, you play that. Then this one goes from your graveyard back to your hand, and you get to play that one the next time. And you can just keep blocking those terrors forever. That could work, I guess. But it's a little too slow. It just doesn't. It doesn't quite make it. It doesn't quite make it. It's interesting though. I could see this being a basis for a deck. I think you'd want it to have maybe one more point of power. You'd want it to have, I was going to say first strike. I don't even think you'd really want first strike on it. You'd have to give it something else. Although first strike would be interesting. First strike with infect. So imagine that somebody blocks, and even though your first strike damage wouldn't kill the creature, since you do your damage first, it would give them -2, -2. It's almost like flanking, like double flanking at that point, before their creature is able to do damage back to you. That could be interesting. First strike with an infect creature. I don't think I've even considered that before. Cool. But I don't think Corpse Cur is all that great. I do want to hedge a little bit, thinking that I actually really do think that Enter's ability is pretty cool as a way of looping these creatures. So I'm going to give it a slightly better score because of that. Let's give it a 3.6. 3.6. I don't know if I made the mark. I think I did, but we'll just keep going and not make another mark. What's our next card? It is Wild Mongrel. Interesting card here. It's 1 and a green for a 2/2 dog. You can discard a card, and this creature gets +1/+1 and becomes the color of your choice till the end of turn, which is a mechanic that doesn't really get a whole lot of play these days. There aren't a whole lot of color hosers. I'd say they're more in Pauper than you generally see in other formats, because you have specifically the red Elemental Blast and the blue Elemental Blast and the Hydro Blast and the Pyroblast. Those all do something. You also have Prismatic Strands, which is a card that will prevent damage from a single color for a turn. So it is kind of cool that you could change this thing's color and avoid that and still get in with the damage. We talked about free discard outlets on maybe the last episode, and this gives you an option for a free discard outlet that could be useful to you. It also gives a pump effect to the creature. So you could dump your whole hand, and you can do it at instant speed. So you kind of got like an Atog or an Atog effect, not an Atog. That's a different creature, but you could do an Atog effect where your opponent feels like they have to block this thing, because if they don't block it, you could just discard your whole hand and do 7 damage to them instead. Or it's kind of like a Psychic Frog in a way, where you can discard a card from your hand when they block, and you can discard as many cards as you need to keep this thing alive and kill the opponent's creature. That's pretty cool. You are losing a lot of card advantage when you do that, though, so that's less cool. This is a cool card. It's it was in World Championship decks, so obviously it's got some uses to it. I have not seen this show up in a Pauper list, at least not one recently that I can think of. But it is a Grizzly Bear. It's a 2-mana 2/2, but better, way better than a Grizzly Bear. And that gives you a little bit of flexibility. It's cool. I like it. But I don't see it in a Pauper deck. Let's give it a little bit of respect that a World Champ deck worthy card would get. And let's go ahead and give it a 4.1. And move right along to Argivian Cavalier. It's 2 and white for a 2/2 Orc Knight. It's got Enlist. What does Enlist do? Do I remember? It's Enlist. Without looking, Enlist, I think, is you can tap another creature and it gives its power and toughness to this creature until end of turn. Is that right? As this creature attacks, you can tap a non-attacking creature you control without summoning sickness. When you do, add its power. Just its power. Just its power, not even its toughness. Interesting. But you add its power to this creature's until the end of turn. And when this creature enters, you create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So that could be a creature to use for the enlist, which would make this a 3/2 when it attacks. I don't think enlist is all that great. It could be good in an instance where you give this thing first strike and now the extra power can help. It can be good, not on this card, but theoretically, if you had like a samurai card that had this, there are a number of samurai cards that say when this creature attacks alone, you get some benefit. So if this creature could attack alone and enlist a bunch of stuff, it's still the only thing attacking, but it's getting all the benefits of the power boost from all the other creatures. That could be cool. This is not a samurai, though. This is a knight, and I don't think there were any samurais with enlist, and that's just not gonna work for that. And I think generally you like having your damage spread out more over creatures. They can only block so many creatures. If their board versus your board, if you have a bigger board, more creatures, and you swing in, they can't block all of them. So you get more damage through that way, more often than not. I really don't like that enlist doesn't give the toughness boost. It should do that. I don't really like this card now. I don't think I liked it before, but I certainly don't like it now. I'm going to give this also its power and toughness without the enlist bonus. I'm going to give this a 2.2, and I'm going to move on and not look back. To our final card of the day, final card of the week, it is Cloud Heath Drake. It's 4 and a blue for an artifact creature Drake. It flies. It's a 3/3. And it also has, for 1 and a white, this creature gains vigilance until end of turn. Cool. Not very good, but cool. 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer is a little expensive. But it's a halfway decently big creature for blue. Having this white ability, it means that it really does need to be in a deck that can make multiple forms of mana, although Vigilance is not the greatest ability. But if you're not going to ever pay for this ability, I would say that you have many better options than this card when building a Pauper deck. Limited? Sure. Limited's cool that you could just use this blue, essentially French vanilla blue card. But if you have white, you draft this in white, you go, okay, well, I've got a little extra something I can do with this. That's neat. But kind of draft chaffy and not really Pauper playable. We will give this a 1.3. You know what? End of the week. Feeling fun. Let's do a bonus card, see if we get something cool. It is Dripping Dead. It is cool. It's not good, but it is cool. Dripping Dead is 4 black for a 4/1 zombie, and it can't even block. What's the upside, right? Well, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, you destroy that creature, and it can't be regenerated. So, kind of a one-sided death touch, but it has to be on the attack. Someone has to block this for that to happen. That's not true. You could block. Yeah, it's just when it deals combat damage to a creature. Never mind. It's just death touch. Okay, but it can't. Oh, sorry, it can't block. That's right. Right. I forgot the other line of text. It can't block, so it can't even do that. So you're only attacking with this thing. And if you're attacking with this thing and somebody blocks it, sure, you could do the damage to kill that creature, destroy it. It can't be regenerated. But this thing has 1 toughness, so anything they block it with, a little token or whatever, kills this thing too. It's just a trade. And you spent 6 mana for this, and they spent maybe 1 mana, maybe not even 1 mana to get a little 1/1 token on the board. Do you feel like that was a good use of your resources? I would not. I would not. Yeah, spending 6 mana on something that can't even block. It's only 4 power. That's not a huge amount of power for 6 mana. And it's got so many drawbacks to it. I own a copy of this card. I love my copy of this card. Look at that art. Look at this thing. It's called Dripping Dead. It's got viscera coming out of its mouth. It's got an axe on its arm. Thing rules. Well done, Thomas Baxa. But, man, not a very good card. I'm going to give this a... I'm going to give this a 1. I hate it. I hate doing it. I hate doing it. I'm going to give this a 1. You know what? I'm having too much fun. Let's do one more bonus card. One more bonus card. Something good. Swell of Growth is 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. You may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. That's interesting. That is interesting. Interesting for a couple of reasons. So one, on the downside, it's a giant growth that isn't quite as good as a giant growth. It's only 2/3 as good of a giant growth, and you're paying double the mana for it. That part's not that great. Being able to put an extra land on the table is good. That's just ramp right there. Ramp on a combat trick, pretty cool. But also at instant speed is pretty cool. There are some landfall style effects in Pauper. And having a card that just says, well, you can do landfall on your opponent's turn, that could be interesting. You can ramp on your opponent's turn. You could ramp at the end of your opponent's turn, even when you don't need the power and toughness boost. You just do this so you can throw an extra land on the table, and now you untap with one more land. That's pretty sweet. I mean, the land has to be in your hand. That's the other downside. You know, you don't just get to go search your library for it. But it's also any land. That you don't have to go find a basic. You just have another really good land in your hand. You get to play it. I think this is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen this card before, but I kind of like it. I'm thinking of like, why have I never considered this for like a commander deck? And it's mostly because combat tricks are not really all that great in commander. I kind of dig it, though. I kind of dig it. For Pauper, though, I don't know. Where do you put it? There's some green decks that don't hate something like this. You know, I don't think this goes in like a Jund Wildfire deck. I guess it could, but I don't think it would. You're able to ramp in better ways that the deck is more built around for that. Yeah, I just don't think it has a real place anywhere. Let's give it a 2.9, which is probably a little high, but I'm just kind of taken with it. I like this little guy. Maybe I'll have to pick up a copy or two. Anyway, I think that's a fine end to our week. We saw some cool cards this week. Maybe we'll find some more cool cards next week on Common Knowledge. Till then, see you later.